What up, London?
He's come straight here, and we're very lucky and very pleased to have him. So let's kick off. This is probably a quote that's going to come back to haunt you, but you said that one of the starting points for Spring Breakers, you had an image of women in bikinis with guns. How did the film expand from that to what we?
Why would that haunt me?
Well, he's been doing interviews
all right,
all day.
No, I don't know. I'd been kind of collecting Spring Break imagery for a while, for a couple of years. Like I was using it for artwork, like paintings and things, and then I started to just look at all the pictures together and that world and all these kind of hypersexual, hyper-violent kind of subject matter, and then there's all these like pop kind of details and pop culture indicator, all these like, you know, the fingernail polish, the book bags, the puke, the Dunkin' Donuts boxes, the, you know, like all that stuff kind of spoke to me. It was like a coded language. And then I just started dreaming things up, and I thought about like girls in bikinis, like with guns on the beach, just robbing like fat tourists, and it was striking, the image. And then it stayed with me, and then I started to just kind of make up the storyline.
And tell us more. I mean, the Spring Break tradition was something that wasn't really well known to me. Tell us more about that tradition, and because I understand that you went down to Florida to write the film. How was that? Because you went down when the actual Spring Break was taking place. Is that correct?
Yeah, I found this like a human jawbone in a chandelier, and at a Days Inn, and like I just stayed there and wrote the script in Panama City during Spring Break, like 2 years ago.
And is the Spring Break really as, I mean, you found a jawbone in is it really as debauched as you depict it here? It's pretty full on.
Yeah. I mean, in America, Spring Break's kind of a common thing. So it's like you know, I grew up around a lot of that. That is like pretty much like it's like a kind of, you know, something that happens like once a year, where kids kind of go and destroy everything, cut loose, and then drive back home and pretend like it didn't happen. At the same time, I didn't want to make a movie that's about, I'm not even saying like this film is real. Like it's not really an expose on Spring Break, or it's more like a kind of pop poem or something. It's more like an impressionistic reinterpretation of those things. It's pushed into something more imaginary. It's more like my dreams or something, but it's not like a, obviously that's not like a, you know, what happens in the film is not like what really happens there.
And I mean, also one of the things I said at the start that, you know, we've played all of your films here, and it strikes me right from Gummo, the directorial debut, that location is almost like a character in your films. It's a really important part of your films rather than just being a setting. How did you want that element to function in Spring Breakers?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I've always been obsessed with like tones in films and like a feeling, and so I wanted this movie to be something that was like post articulation, in that way that it's more inexplicable and more like a magic or an energy or something, and or like a drug experience. It's something that's more almost like a trance, or and with some kind of transcendence, like a peak and then a disappearing into black. And so much of it has to do with like the feel of the locations and the ambience of the film. I said that this movie, in a lot of ways, is about a culture of surfaces, and very much about the way things look, and a kind of candy-coated reality. And then all the pathology and the menace and the violence is the residue. I wanted the film to look like it was like lit with like Skittles, you know, like you could just taste it. And so, so that's a big part when I make movies. I like just go down. Usually I go down to locations alone a couple months earlier and just kind of get lost. I don't even really ask questions. I just start driving around, and that's how I find a lot of locations.
And I mean, we'll come back a bit more to look at the film because I want to talk about your cinematographer. But in terms of actually shooting, how was that? Because also we'll talk about the casting, but obviously the kind of personas and stardom of the young cast, the female cast who you work with, did that make the shoot difficult? Because you must have been followed everywhere by paparazzi. I imagine you have the same.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, it was weird. It was stuff I never had dealt with before. The kind of the chaos that follows these girls is pretty insane. I wasn't used to it, it made it a challenge also because we were shooting on location in real places. This crew was relatively small, and so a lot of it was the energy in the film was from being chased or from there was that really going on. I mean, yeah, there were times there were more like people and whatever people like crowds would start to line up more than there would be more than there would be crew members, and the girls themselves though were really. For the most part, I mean, Selena had one or two moments where she was trying to do something. It was pretty hard for her to concentrate. They made it difficult, but for the most part, they were pretty bold and they went for it.
Yeah, I mean, and how much pleasure did you take from kind of being quite subversive with their images? I mean, because their fans are probably they probably can't even see the film. Can they see the film in the States, most of their fans?
They'll all see it one day.
Right, yeah, one day.
It's mandatory viewing
but was it
public schools.
Was it kind of fun to play around with their kind of fame and the way people normally perceive them?
Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And James Franco, I mean, we know James Franco here as kind of a really kind of forward-thinking, always taking risks. But, for all the performances we've seen, and he's directed a lot of films which haven't been screened here. We're hoping to screen one later this year called The Broken Tower. But, I mean, he really is something else in this film. Can you just talk a bit about working with James Franco? Was he always your first choice? And how much of the character of Alien was kind of on the page and given to him, and how much did he bring to the part?
Yeah, he's a maniac, He's someone that's like... He's attacking life, and so it's interesting because the way actors and the movie world and even like the entertainment world and sports world functions, it's become such a corporate. It's so corporatized and so kind of generic, and like even the people, the actors that people think are outspoken are really lame, and so everything is so rigid and like it's all like it's like it's all run by like accountants, and even actors now are accountants, and so. It's interesting when someone, when someone like Franco exists in this way, even if you don't understand or like what he's doing outside of his acting, if you can't make sense of it, it's interesting because he's inventing it as he's going, which is something I understand. And so we both liked it. I always admired him as an actor. He liked my movies, and so we had spoken for a couple of years prior to the film about doing something together. And I'd always thought, he's a handsome guy, so he gets these leading man parts. But I had always thought of him more as like a character actor. His tendency is to, in his personal life, is to be more adventurous, more extreme, and risky. And so I had wanted to do something where I felt like he could really push it. And so. When I had this idea of the alien character, it was based on like kids I went to school with. We used to ride the bus to school with. It was just rap and like white dudes with grills, and like and so like and there were kids when I was growing up at school in Nashville that would like come to school with guns and stuff like that. And I would think like, well, what would happen to them if they had just like lit, like if they didn't die, like what happens to them by age 30? And I thought like they'd become alien, and so. I called him up and I described the part to him, and I did something. Cause I normally never do. I usually write the script and I wait and then give it to him. But I wanted to know if it was a part that he would want to play, and he immediately said yeah. And so then I just like went at it. I didn't want him to be one thing. I wanted him to almost be like a gangster mystic or something, like somewhere in there he's kind of like a sociopath, but also like a poet or a clown or something. And I wanted him that was like pure charisma, almost like a shapeshifter, or kind of he's like a strange cultural mashup in some ways. And so for the year prior to the film, I would just send him YouTube clips or audio. It was based in something southern and regional, and I would send him like audio clips, rappers, video clips of like girls getting in fights in parking lots at 3 a.m, just things I felt like spiritually pertained to his character. Things that would shape his worldview. And then he never responded. So I would just send him these things, like hundreds of these things. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, every once in a while, he'd just say something like peace. And I was just like, what does that even mean, Is he like, is he watching this shit? Does he think, and then about a month before shooting, he came down and we basically like he didn't want to rehearse, and so what we do is we just get in a car and just drive around St. Petersburg, like he and I, like late at night, like 2 a.m. We just drive through the hood, and I would just roll his windows down. He'd have like a Diet Coke in the back, and slunk down, and I would just be like, "That's the house you cook crack in when you were 12. That's the trap house, the first trap house you were exposed to, cooking crack, and that's the boardwalk where you robbed your first, tourist, whatever." I would say that's where, this is the school you got expelled from. This was the playground that you used to get beat up as a kid. And then that was it. And just kind of drive around, and he would just quietly breathe it all in. And didn't even really say much. And then on the day of shooting, or right before, when he, obviously I was nervous. And then I was like, oh man, I hope he pulls it off. And we put him in his costume, and then he walked out, and he did his voice and his whole thing, and I was like, holy shit. It was like he'd been consuming it, he'd been taking it in the whole time. And this was his kind of reinterpretation of that. I was pretty blown away.
Yeah, no, it's an amazing performance. And again, as well, with location and going right back to Gummo, one of the other things that always characterised your work was you like to kind of cast, I don't like the term non-actors, I'm not sure how you feel about that term, but you like to cast people from the kind of local area and local environment. Is that something that you did here? I mean, I'm particularly taken by the twins, who are almost more frightening than the James Franco character.
Yeah.
You would not want to meet those two people in real life. And also the guy who played Alien's nemesis, I understand he was somebody that you cast who had a career as a gangster and was in prison when you cast him, is that correct?
Well, that's Gucci Mane. He's like he's like the best rapper. Right. He's a trap rapper. He's like the trap Frank Sinatra. Right. But like, I was just a huge fan of Gucci. I was just like, I always loved him, and I always wanted to do something with him. He never acted before, and I called up his manager, Coach K, and I was like, yo, Coach, what's up with Gooch? And he's like, Gooch is in jail. And then I was like, any way to talk to Gooch? And then I called him in jail, and then had a conversation. I was like, I think he had like 6 months left on his bid, and I was like, if you could stay out, when you get out, I have a part waiting for you. And he did. And he's actually back in jail now. Right. It sucks. I was just with him like a week ago. Yeah, he reoffended. And then...
and the twins?
The twins are my friends, too. I mean...
Not lovely guys? Just...
No, I mean, they're scumbags, but they're amazing. They're
amazing scumbags.
No, they are. They're like... Again, they're like what makes America great. Because only America could produce something like the ATL twins. They're just like... they live with like no filter. Their philosophy is boiled down to this idea of pure like double penetration. They're mirror twins who only exist to double penetrate, and they don't drink water. They exist only on Vicodin and Red Bull, and piss kidney stones all day long. They're amazing.
They're not here tonight, are they? Just to
jail.
Yeah, right. Wow. You talked about the kind of look of the film and the kind of candy-coloured look. Talk a bit more about your cinematographer, Benoit Depay. Is it Depay? Is that how you pronounce his surname?
Benoit.
I mean, he shot a film I really like called The Ordeal, which a lot of people won't have seen here. It was released as Calvaire. He shot Innocence, and he shot The Last Gaspar Noé, didn't he? Enter the Void.
Yeah.
I mean, you've worked with him before. Tell us about your collaboration, because he seems to have really contributed in a really big way to this film. And the look of the film, as well as the music, which we'll come on to, is a really big part of Spring Break.
Yeah, Benoit is amazing. He's Belgian cinematographer. He's one of the best. I mean, again, I wanted the movie to have this kind of liquid narrative, this thing in micro scenes, or to work in a way that was closer to something you would find in like electronic music or loop-based music, things that would have a kind of repeating and a more kind of physical elements, and so I'm good friends with Gaspar, and I had always talked to him about working with Benoit. And Benoit is like really super inventive, and also a lot of the color is a large character in the film, and Benoit's was pretty amazing with that. It was like making paintings, and if I said like, hey Benoit, I need you to jump out of a window with a camera, he would do it. So that's what you look for in a cinematographer. You mentioned you likened it to electronic music.
I said in the introduction, I've seen the film 4 times, and the thing with me is it really kind of seeps into your consciousness. The way that you kind of repeat images and the way you play around with the audio, it reminded me of kind of almost like listening to a pop song. It really kind of gets into you. It also reminded me, and you'll probably think I'm nuts, it reminded me of Nick Rogue, the way the sort of non-linear structures. Was that something that we've not really seen you do so much before? Was that something that you've done it, but not to this degree? Was that something that you really wanted to explore with this?
Yeah,
this
it's something I've been trying to develop for a while. This idea is as a film is like as a physical experience, as a kind of and something that again is like it's it is more something that's more inexplicable. Like there's a misconception that I'm somehow obsessed with this idea of truth in films. I don't care about truth in films. I don't care about truth in cinema. I never have cared about it because I don't think it really exists. It's a waste of time, and I think truth is boring for the most part. Like, so what I'm trying to create is something that's more energy based, something that's more inexplicable, like a kind of magic, and so that the film works in a way that it's like a kind of energy. And so I said, going back to this idea of micro scenes or liquid narrative, things that it's like time has exploded, and images and sounds coming from all directions. I didn't know if it would work in a film, in a feature film, but I had been playing around with it in short films, and even in every once in a while when I do advertising and things that were like that, it was trying to go beyond a kind of simple articulation and move into something that was more almost hallucinatory.
Well, it kind of has a hypnotic element.
Yeah, like you were saying, there is also like certain things like in pop music, a lot of the audio that you hear that's repeated, it almost becomes like audio hooks, or eventually they even become like mantras or something. Things that are sound silly in the beginning or sound bass retarded almost become, elevated in some way after the repetition.
It's like that line that's often repeated, just think of it as a video game,
right.
Which I think is a great line. And I know you say that you don't look for truth in your films, but if people were looking at how this might comment on kind of popular culture, that's kind of what we've grown up with, the idea of video games informing our reality. Yeah,
I should say truth is it's more of an impressionistic truth rather than some type of verite truth.
Yeah. And we started to talk about the music. Again, I'm going to look like a granddad. Whenever I pronounce him, my kids laugh and tell me I've got it wrong. But the music is a combination of Skrillex. Is that close?
Close enough. Skrillex.
Okay, yeah. Skrillex. I just wanted to make sure you knew how to do it, to be honest with you. And Cliff Martinez, who obviously he worked with Soderbergh, did a lot of Soderbergh scores. Two very different kind of composers, but on the soundtrack, which is going to be available, I've just bought it, it's very good. They kind of, even the soundtrack is like a mashup. It doesn't function like a normal soundtrack. Yeah. What were you looking for with these two kind of very different approaches to the score?
Like energy. Like I wanted the sound to be like bombastic and beautiful and like an attacking. I wanted there to be a kind of this almost like this invisible line where like sound design and music almost become one and the same. And so and certain musical elements aren't really musical, and certain and things that I wanted it to have again like a physical like a element to it. Like when I was a kid growing up, I used to live close by this area where kids would just drive these boom trucks around, like these trucks that would just like all it was bass. They weren't even music. It would just play bass. It would just be like boom, boom. It was like fucking bombs going off. I was like 12 years old, like sitting in my like living room trying to watch like Pee-wee's at Playhouse or whatever, and then just hearing these like bass, and I could feel my stomach shake. It was like bombs, and it was amazing. And I wanted that rattle. I wanted that thing in your gut. Like I wanted that to be like the feeling of the whole movie. Like I wanted it to rattle the fuck out of you.
It does. That's why Harmony, the only instruction he gave us tonight was to turn it up loud. And the only other film we've played this loud here was Drive, the Nicholas Winding Refn film. You actually stood there and made us keep turning it up. You wanted to go up to 11 like Spinal Tap.
You wanted to be like insufferable almost.
Yeah, which it kind of was in its own way. Let's also... I also wanted to ask you about references. I mean, I know that you're a great cineast, and obviously Werner Herzog, somebody that you've worked with and somebody who really admires your work. Did you kind of... You obviously had a very, very specific look on how you wanted Spring Breakers to look, to sound and to feel. Were there any references you brought into play? I mean, I hope you don't mind me. When I first saw it, the first time, the opening sequence, I immediately thought of the Chris Cunningham video for Aphex Twin, Window Licker. I just wondered if there was any kind of films or any other kind of references from art or culture that maybe might have exerted an influence on you.
Like usually what happened in the old days, when I was a kid, I would watch movies compulsively before I'd make movies. And then what happened is now as I go, I watch less and less movies. And the older I get, I watch less and less films. And so about a year before I start shooting, I start to tune them out. And I feel like I watch so many movies and I love, and I had some of my, obviously films mean a lot to me. But at some point I started to feel like I never consciously reference things. I feel like the works, not just films, things, anything, clips, blah, 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 rap videos. I feel the stuff that really affects me in some ways, it manifests itself, is manifested inside, and so it lives there. And so I don't feel the need to I'm not like consciously out there. I don't need to get it from those, but I'd rather. So I start to just let myself dream as I and to kind of develop my own idea. I think the only thing I really watched before I watched a lot was the Michael Mann movie, Miami Vice.
All right.
I love that movie, but I would just watch it with the sound off. I just love the way like Florida looks in that film, like the crunchiness to the film, the purple skies and stuff. That movie was was an influence.
Sure. I mean, the other thing with this film is you've talked about. One of the things I really enjoyed when I watch it, and each time I watch it, is it doesn't ever attempt to moralise or preach. It's completely unsanctimonious. You watch the film and you take or leave the characters on their kind of own terms. Was that something that you also were keen, not to offer any kind of personal or political view on the kind of actions that are going on? I mean, the actions play out, and you don't attempt to influence how the viewers might come away from that. Were you keen to avoid that kind of didactic approach?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Good.
Yeah, again, you want the movie, and I try hard to. You want the films to exist in some type of. How can I say this? In some type of moral abstraction. In some ways, I don't want to invent characters to condemn them in an overt way. That's not to say that there isn't condemnation that exists in the film, or there isn't things that. But I don't necessarily feel like having to punish people for doing things in an obvious way. Because in life, I've noticed that good people do terrible things, and terrible people also do good things. And what's to say that these people won't be punished 5 seconds after the movie's over with? It's just, I never wanted to see, I hate it when people get arrested, and go to jail. I'm sure it could happen. Sure. It probably will happen, but I'm not going to, waste time showing that. I want things to exist in a way that allows you to dream it up yourself. Do you know what I mean? I feel like people just always want to condemn and tell you that this is all bad or this is all good, but I think that things are more tricky than that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So I always try to, and with this film too, invent its own specific logic, have the films work on their own logic.
Sure. Okay, one more question from me, and we'll pass it over to the audience. Without turning this into kind of I know a lot of people are here that have followed your career all the way through, and without wishing to turn this into a kind of massive retrospective hindsight looking back, what do you feel, obviously Kids you wrote when you were very young, Gummo, Mr. Lonely, Trash Humpers, Julian Donkey Boy. How do you feel what do you feel you've learned from those early experiences to making this picture, which is probably on a bigger canvas? It's been a huge success, which we might talk about after some questions from the audience. What do you feel the process you've gone through as a filmmaker to get to this point?
Well, I just feel like I can do anything. Nothing can ever stop me. I'm fortified, and I'm on the side of righteousness. And I'm a soldier of cinema. So all I'll ever do is be great.
You should get that put on a T-shirt so everybody can. Okay, let's take some questions from the audience. Don't be shy. Have we got roving microphones, Anna? Yeah, we've got 2 microphones. Okay, there's a question right down the front, and if you just wait microphone will come to you. Hopefully.
Hi Army, I thought it was a crazy film. It's like watching some guy's wet dream on screen or something. That was actually amazing. So I wanted to say that before I asked you the question.
I busted a nut on screen for you.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask, I was watching, like last week I was watching like, a lot of movies like Gummo, Julian Donkey Boy, and then after that I was watching like Kids, Bully, Ken Park, a lot of Larry Clark stuff. And I've kind of come to realise I think you're a much better filmmaker than Larry Clark. And the reason I say it is because like a lot of his films do seem like he's repeating a lot of the same stuff, whereas you're really diverse. I was just wondering, when you're making this film, were you thinking about kids at all? Because like not at all. Because they're part of it. Obviously, it's a lot more bigger scale than kids, but it just reminds me of kids dealing with violence, kids taking drugs, kids like having sex.
Yeah.
I was just wondering.
I never thought about it once.
Really?
Yeah.
That answered my question pretty quickly.
Yeah, I never thought about it. I mean, I could see the connection, and I mean, in some ways, I mean, it's a much different movie. Kids was more meant to be like an insider's point of view. It was about kids that were seeking oblivion and trying to disappear. This is more like this is more from a distance in some ways, or it's more about a spectacle and a performance. And then these kids are more like wanting to be found, you know. But there's definitely a connection, probably. I mean, I did them both.
Do you think there's any kind of recurrence in an interest? I mean, without wishing to generalise, there is an interest in kind of people that you could consider outsiders. Do you think that's something that runs through?
Well, that for sure, yeah. That just was the way I grew up, you know. Like, so I just grew up that way, and that was how I was raised. And so I think I always have a kind of an attraction for whatever outsiders or people, marginalized characters or extreme characters or things. It was just that's what I saw, what I enjoyed. So,
okay, let's take some more questions. Show of hands. There's somebody right at the front. Sorry, it's quite hard to see, but we will try and get to you.
Why did you cast Rachel? Why did you want to cast your wife for this character?
Did people here at the back? Yep. The question was, why did Harmony want to cast his wife in the film as one of the characters?
it's just because I think I love her.
Especially this character. Why Rachel for this character?
Because she's the most bold, and I knew I needed her. Like I love working with her, and I like working with people in general that I love and trust. And like I knew that she would do whatever I needed her to do. You know, like I knew that she would go to places and not necessarily question it. You know, like I knew that she was there to fight the good fight, and so I needed her also just as inspiration for others.
Okay. There was somebody at the back. Is the hand still there? Yeah.
You mentioned not wanting to be that you're not a moralist or not wanting to be moralistic or judgmental, and there's a scene like at the beginning. I think it's Selena sitting in like a church in like a circle, and I just wondered if indeed you were like trying to make some comment on the church, which I often see as being moralistic and judgmental, without really having the right to be that. Is there any sort of
like?
Were you making a comment
I will
on
say,
that?
because it's hard for me because I don't want to like tell you. Do you know what I mean? Like, because it's like it fucks it up if I say that. Like I will say all that stuff's in the movie. It's all there for a reason. But like when when you write it and then you direct it and then you also say that's what it's there for, it's like you just kill it. So like, it's more exciting for me to let you, perceive it however you do, and to make those connections.
Okay. More questions? There's somebody else towards the back. Thank you.
Hey Harmony, how you doing, dude?
What's up?
I really like that you say you don't like truth, when you do something. Do you think anybody who wants to go into, making a movie with that has a really creative artistic feel to it, like this one does, do you think anybody should be like that? And it's probably a rhetorical question, but I don't know, because if people are just trying to find something, like they're trying to create something or just do anything they want to do you think they should say, all right, fuck truth?
I mean, I don't know. That's a funny question. Fuck truth.
It's a big statement.
That's a funny one. So like a weird bumper sticker or something. I don't know, you have to do what you have to do. You have to, make your own rules up. You have to. I don't like to say like what you have to do. Like I don't know. Like it also depends on what type of movie you want to make or what type of artwork or how. It's nothing wrong with truth, and it's even truth. I mean, it's such an abstract thing. It's more just this idea of saying, this is the way it is, and this is, I don't believe it, but there's something in great movies that hovers above truth, and that's a kind of poetry, or like Night of the Hunter is a film, for example, where it's like there's nothing truthful about that film, but in some ways, it's the most truest movie that's ever existed. It seems like it was created by God or something. Like the images just created themselves. So it's more than truth. It becomes some type of, like I said, like some type of an energy or something.
I think that's particularly special with that film because it's the only film he directed as well, which gives it this kind of uniqueness.
Right.
It's an astonishing film. Okay, any more questions? Yeah, somebody else seems to be from everybody wearing black tonight.
You had that scene, I think the kind of euphoric high, the highest point of the film was the Britney Spears montage moment, which is kind of strange because of how energetic all the rest of the music is. And then in that sudden, slow moment, you have this really emotional high. Did you know at that point that you wanted that song? Were there others you considered? How did you come up with that idea for that moment?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I just had been wanting to do that sequence for a long time. And since I heard that song, I'd been wanting to do that. I can't explain where it came from. It stayed with me. And then when I was writing it, I was like, this is the place, this is the movie, I can do it. But it basically is like, I felt like that song in some ways very much it tied in emotionally or whatever to the film, and that on the surface it's very kind of it's kind of glossy and poppy and kind of slightly morose and beautiful and without any kind of air. It's like it's very much about it's like a surface pop kind of pop ballad, but then underneath it I felt like there was this kind of menace to it and this kind of something that was like more violent, and so it just lent itself to that imagery. I can't explain really it more than that. It was more of like just that feeling that it could work and it could be what it is.
Okay, we have time for a few more questions. There's somebody next to the last question. So, terrific.
Hi, I just wanted to ask, how did you go about raising funds for the film? Because it is, impressionistic at the same time as being kind of wild and crazy. Was it something that got support immediately, or did you have to pitch it in a certain way?
I mean, fuck, you just do what you got to do. I don't know. You just get money. I don't know. You just get money. We just get it.
Your producer's here.
Yeah. You just get it. You just make it happen.
Yeah. There we are. Here's the man to see if you've got a film to make. The other thing I was just going to say, the idea of getting money and the film. I mean, it doesn't feel remotely compromised, this film. But as we were talking beforehand, it's been a big. I mean, in America, you said it's done $12 million, which is that right? Is it 12 million? And it's
I don't know. It's doing pretty good.
It's doing well, and here it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Vertigo have done a really good job, and it's on the tube and sold out tonight. Does it feel? Your other films have been critically admired, but haven't found perhaps this kind of commercial success. How does that feel? Was that an interesting position?
It was
to be in?
awesome.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, it's terrific. Because look, you always make movies, and this idea that you hope as many people as possible see the film. So, but it doesn't always work out like that. You make films. I always think they're going to be somewhat commercial, and they never are. So it's nice when it actually fucking is every once in a while. So no, this one is. No, it's cool. It's good.
Good. Okay, we've got time probably for two more questions. So, okay, there's somebody again in black.
I just wondered how you dealt with the sort of rehearsal process with the girls. You mentioned that you'd not seen, I don't know if you meant literally, you'd not seen Franco's performance until he stepped out. Is that something you consciously did for the girls as well, so they would sort of turn up and not have spent any time with him? And also, what did you do? Did you take the girls away and to sort of get a rapport?
Yeah, I know. I rehearsed a lot with them. It's a different thing with them, and because they needed to be like one person. I'd always conceived of them as almost a single person. There's just 4 different parts of a whole, and so they spent a long time together, lots of rehearsals, and then in the prep, I would just have them be together. Really, I just needed them to create a kind of, and even the audition process, they spent a lot of time together. And then there weren't many lines. The whole script maybe had 50 lines in it or something like that. There wasn't much dialogue, and then we'd kind of play and invent things.
The other thing related to that question is the sense of camaraderie between them seems very authentic. Was that something? I mean, was that something that kind of happened organically in when you started shooting? I mean, you wanted them to gel, but
believe it or not, like those girls were the easiest part of the whole film for me, at least. They were like the most like they were. Whatever you say about Disney and all that stuff, I mean, they have like a work ethic that's pretty. That's pretty amazing, you know. I was like, wow. I mean, they were there like always when you said it. It's like never happens that way, but these girls were, and so I couldn't believe it. In some ways, this is like a Disney film
with more guns and crack. Okay, we've got a question in the middle there. The microphone is coming. Sorry. And we're out of time. No, just kidding, sorry.
It's like pass the parcel. Basically, you were talking about the liquid narrative and that sort of working as a feature film, and then maybe you'd done some short films before that. Was that the film that you did with Val Kilmer?
I did lots of stuff. I've done lots of stuff. But that thing with Val, the Lotus Community Center, that's something. Yeah.
He seems like quite a similar character in some ways to James
maybe
Franco.
there are. Yeah, I don't know. I never thought about that, but they both are pretty out there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Okay, we have got time for one more question. If anybody has a burning question, and there's somebody right at the back. Thank you.
Yeah, I was wondering kind of what your script looked like compared to the final film. In terms of, did you have all the moments of repetition and stuff? Was that all in your head, or did that make it onto the page, or did that come in the editing?
Yeah, so they were all different. So there's the script, which I honestly never have that much interest in. I just write the script like one time, and it's enough time to like get the actors and the money, and then I don't think about it much after that. And then with this film, I storyboarded this movie from beginning to end, and so I started to because I needed, because I knew I wanted to try to make the film like that, and I needed something I felt like that was in my mind that would just kind of remind me of like the rhythm that I was trying to get at. So then there was that, and then there was in the edit, which is really where you find the film, and so each one kind of builds ultimately until you're cutting the film, and then that's where you really start to figure out the language.
I was just going to ask finally before we let you go. Some directors don't like to talk about this; they feel it jinxes it. But now that you're in a position, and you've obviously really enjoyed the experience of making this film, you're obviously enjoying the kind of way it's been received. Do you have a next project lined up? Do you have something that you want to do next, or are you reticent to tell us what that is?
I don't really know what it is. I mean, I'll be honest. I really don't know. Like when I make movies, and this is true, when I'm making films, while I'm making films, all I do is dream about not making films. I mean, when I'm on set and stuff, I just dream about being back in my house and away from people and like not making movies. But then when I'm not making films and I'm at my house, all I do is dream about making movies. So it's this weird kind of thing where you're never like exactly comfortable in the place that you're at. Do you know what I mean? So as of now, I'm just like in my basement making paintings and playing with my daughter and stuff. I'll probably try to start writing scripts this year and figure out. I want to make something soon.
You seem in a good place. You seem happy.
Man, I'm in the best place.
Good. Okay, well,
thanks everybody.
Spring Breakers is released April 5, so it's out this Friday. Tell your friends. Big thank you to Vertigo Films, Wahida and Rupert from Vertigo. Thank you very much for coming in, and a big thank you again to Harmony Korine.